The quality is so much better than I expected. It feels like something way more expensive. Honestly, it's kind of a steal. Show support to Nubian narrator and cop some merch before it's sold out again.
You know, a government has officially run out of ideas when it reaches into the dusty cupboard of bad solutions and pulls out a license. Yes, a work license for police officers. Because apparently the problem with policing in Britain is not culture, funding, trust, accountability, leadership, morale, or recruitment. No. The real crisis is that officers don't have enough laminated credentials. Welcome to Reform by Stationery. The proposal is simple. Every police officer must hold a license to practice. No license, no job. Not suspended, not retrained, gone. Which sounds dramatic, but in reality it's the most aggressively bureaucratic idea anyone's had since someone invented the phrase performance review. It's being sold as a bold reform, a professionalization, a safeguard. But when you peel away the marketing language, what you're left with is this: a new admin system, a new compliance framework, a new renewal process, a new way to fire people for paperwork failures instead of fixing real issues. This isn't reform, this is optics dressed up as governance. The fantasy, license equals trust. The government's theory seems to be, if officers have a license, the public will trust them more. That's like saying, if a politician wears a badge, we'll believe them more. Public trust isn't built by certificates. It's built by behavior, consistency, accountability, transparency, outcomes. No one has ever said, I don't trust the police because they lack the correct licensing framework. They say, I don't trust the police because of how they behave. I don't trust the police because of how complaints are handled. I don't trust the police because of what happens when officers cross the line. I don't trust the police because nothing seems to change. And the solution to that is a license, a laminated prayer. Doctors need licenses, lawyers need licenses, pilots need licenses, and those systems work because they are backed by deep professional autonomy, rigorous oversight, independent regulatory bodies, meaningful disciplinary structures. This police license doesn't offer any of that. It offers box ticking with consequences. You could be an officer who is brilliant in the field, great with victims, skilled in de-escalation, respected by the community, trusted locally, but miss a renewal deadline, fail to complete the correct e-learning module, fall foul of internal politics. Suddenly your career is on the chopping block, not because you failed the public, but because you failed the portal. That's not professionalization, that's compliance theatre. The license solves what exactly? Let's be painfully honest. This license system does not reduce violent crime, improve response times, fix misconduct processes, repair broken community trust, address institutional bias, support traumatized officers, fix recruitment shortages, improve leadership quality, solve systemic failures. It does, however, create a headline, produce a press release, allow ministers to say, we're taking action, generate impressive sounding phrases like robust professional standards framework, give the illusion of control, which is often the actual goal of modern policy. A reform that exists mainly for camera angles. This policy feels like it was designed in a boardroom where nobody has spoken to a frontline officer in years. You can practically hear the pitch. We need something visible. Something symbolic, something that looks serious, something that polls well. Got it, licenses. Not investment, not culture change, not structural reform, not long-term rebuilding of trust. Just a new mechanism that looks tidy on a policy slide. Real reform is messy. Real reform is expensive. Real reform angers powerful people. Real reform takes years. Licenses are clean. Licenses are simple. Licenses are sellable. That's why we're here. The dangerous part. Licenses can be weapons. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Who controls these licenses? Who decides who keeps them? Who decides who loses them? Who defines what competent means? Because once you create a license system, you create power over livelihoods. And that power can be used for genuine accountability, political pressure, silencing internal critics, punishing inconvenient officers, enforcing conformity over integrity. A license system in the wrong structure doesn't empower good policing. It centralizes control over police careers. That should worry everyone. More paperwork for a profession already drowning in it. Police officers already spend enormous portions of their time on admin, reports, forms, systems, databases, reviews, logging, compliance. Now add license tracking, license renewal, license audits, license appeals, license compliance reviews. That's not supporting frontline work. That's dragging officers further away from it. The government claims this will raise standards. In reality, it will raise workload and reduce morale. Nothing inspires confidence like being told, we don't trust the current system, so we're adding another one on top. Public opinion will not shift because of a license. No one is going to wake up tomorrow and say, you know what's changed my entire perception of policing? Licenses. People change their views based on how officers behave in their communities, how misconduct is handled, whether victims are believed, whether justice feels fair, whether power is used responsibly, not whether someone passed an online refresher module. This license won't restore trust. It won't meaningfully increase accountability. It won't rebuild legitimacy. It will simply allow politicians to point at something and say, we've done something, which is very different from actually fixing anything. This is what policy looks like when it's built for optics. This feels like a reform designed backwards. Instead of asking, what does policing actually need to improve outcomes? They asked, what can we announce that sounds like improvement? That's how you end up with solutions that photograph well but function poorly. A license is visible, it's communicable, it's easy to explain, it sounds serious. But serious problems require serious solutions, and serious solutions are not tidy. Meanwhile, the real issues remain untouched. While everyone debates licenses, the actual issues remain. Overstretched forces, burnt-out officers, inconsistent disciplinary processes, lack of community trust, recruitment struggles, poor retention, uneven training quality, public frustration, political interference. A license addresses none of these. It simply creates the impression of motion, which is often enough for policy architects whose real goal is to survive the next news cycle. The tragedy, both the public and police deserve better. The public deserves meaningful reform, not symbolism, not branding exercises, not cosmetic change. Police officers deserve systems that support them, not systems that threaten them with dismissal over compliance, not systems that treat them like administrative risks rather than human professionals. This policy helps neither side. It doesn't empower officers. It doesn't protect the public. It doesn't transform policing. It just adds another layer of bureaucracy and calls it bold leadership. Imagine explaining this reform to a victim of crime. I'm so sorry your case hasn't been resolved, but don't worry. The officer assigned to you is fully licensed. That's not comfort. That's comedy. Dark comedy, but comedy nonetheless. Let's strip away the slogans. Let's ignore the press releases. Let's silence the buzzwords for just a moment and look at this honestly. This license scheme is not transformation. It's not bold. It's not courageous. It's not visionary. It is administrative theatre. It is what happens when policy is designed for appearance rather than impact, when governments confuse doing something with doing something useful, and when political survival becomes more important than public outcomes. This isn't reform. This is choreography. When governments panic, they reach for symbols. Real reform is hard. Real reform is uncomfortable. Real reform angers institutions, exposes corruption, costs money, requires leadership, and forces people to confront truths they'd rather avoid. Real reform looks like changing police culture from the inside, confronting misconduct transparently, holding senior leadership genuinely accountable, investing in long-term training and mental health support, rebuilding trust with communities that feel alienated, addressing structural inequalities in outcomes, protecting whistleblowers, removing bad officers properly, not quietly relocating them. That's messy. That's controversial. That's slow. That's politically risky. So instead, you get something much easier. A license, a symbol, a certificate, a neat little idea that fits perfectly into a press headline and looks impressive on a policy document. But symbols don't solve structural problems. They decorate them. You cannot fix trust with bureaucracy. You cannot fix legitimacy with admin. You cannot fix morale with compliance frameworks. You cannot fix misconduct with renewal forms. Policing is a profoundly human profession. It's about judgment, temperament, empathy, self-control, ethics, community presence, power exercised responsibly. None of those qualities improve because someone filled out an online module and clicked "I agree" on a portal. If anything, systems like this risk doing the opposite. They teach officers that success is about compliance rather than character, that survival depends on paperwork rather than professionalism, that the real audience is not the public but the internal bureaucracy. That is how institutions rot quietly. Good officers will feel punished, not supported. The tragedy is that this system will likely impact the very people you'd want to keep. Good officers, already overstretched, already exhausted, already demoralized by public hostility and internal pressure, will now carry an additional anxiety. Did I submit everything correctly? Did I complete the right training? Did I satisfy the renewal criteria? Did I upset the wrong person in the chain of command? Meanwhile, truly problematic officers often don't fail at paperwork. They fail at judgment, at integrity, at ethics, at restraint. A licensing system does not reliably filter for those qualities. It filters for compliance, and compliance is not the same thing as competence. Not left, not right, just real.